Hi, I'm Janet Smith, and I am a member of SPIN Brandon. SPIN stands for Suicide Prevention Implementation Network, and it's a group of people who gather together every month to look at ways to make Brandon, Manitoba, and area a suicide safer community. And I'm really happy to have Elan Jury here with me today. Elan is one of the lead facilitators for the Suicide Bereavement Support Group in Brandon. Hi, Elan.
Hi, Janet.
Elan, let's start by talking about suicide bereavement itself, suicide loss, and what are some of the common experiences that the people that you have worked with and continue to work with in the group have shared with you about what makes this type of loss unique, complex?
Sure, Janet. I like that you use the word complex. Another word that I use is ambiguous. One of the things that comes up quite frequently is this uncertainty about the reasons why your loved one might take their own life. So a lot of folks have a hard time reconciling their grief without knowing the reasons behind the loss. And when someone takes their own life, the only person that knows the reasons behind it is the person who's actually taken their life. And so for someone who's lost someone to suicide, you won't ever have an opportunity to find out those answers. And that's really difficult for people to go through and grieve that process of uncertainty.
Mhm. So I'm assuming you hear, or people, there's a lot of why did this happen? And you
Absolutely.
understand what what made someone take that decision.
Yeah. And in a lot of cases, when somebody decides to take their own life, it comes as a surprise to the people who are closest to them.
Mm.
I have had encountered a lot of folks who were really quite surprised that they didn't know how badly their loved one was suffering. And it's shocking to them, and it's hurtful to them that their loved one didn't feel that they could reach out because they were struggling so badly, and that's really also hard for folks.
Mhm. What are some of the other emotions and feelings that people have following a suicide loss?
Um, a big one that comes through, and which I think is really particularly prominent in suicide grief, is anger.
Mm.
When you lose someone to a natural cause, it's something that you can understand. But when someone takes their own life, um, you the folks in the group express feeling really angry at their loved one, which is really hard as well because they're grieving the loss of their loved one and they miss their loved one. And of course, they want to have their loved one close, but at the same time, they're really, really angry. And so there's this anger that gets in the way sometimes of the normal grief process that someone might go through if they lost someone to a natural cause.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So that leads me to the next question, which is what is the need for a group such as a suicide bereavement support group? Because of course there are grief support groups and other grief supports in general for people, but the reason this group was set up historically, as I understand, was that the other grief supports that were available didn't quite meet the needs of people who had lost someone to suicide. Can you speak to kind of what the need is for a group such as this?
Oh, absolutely. The Because of the unique nature of the grief that goes along with a suicide loss, um, there the members of the group often feel like attending a traditional bereavement group just doesn't quite um, help them connect with the loss of others because it's a different kind of loss. And so connecting with a group of other suicide survivors helps helps um, helps them feel like they're understood, helps them make sense of a loss that is really something that is very difficult to make sense of, and just knowing that you're not alone in this process and that somebody else understands that particular kind of loss, the ambiguity of it, the anger associated with it. That's the kind of support you're going to get from other suicide survivors, and not necessarily from someone who hasn't experienced a suicide loss.
Right. And I
Yeah.
would think, I mean, while we've come a long way with respect to stigma around suicide, I would imagine that it would be, as you mentioned, a safe place for people to come together and share. While every grief is different and every individual situation is different, that safe place where you can name it for what it is, and to get the support from other people who may be at different points in their journey, and be able to assist others in the group.
Oh, absolutely. That's a really good point about stigma. I've had group members who say to me, when someone learns that their loved one died by suicide, the conversation stops, and it's avoided, and they don't get an opportunity to talk about their loved ones because people are very uncomfortable with the idea of a suicide loss.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the group itself.
Sure.
You tell me, sort of walk me through, or walk the audience through, what a person would do, if they were contemplating needing this kind of support. How would they get in touch with you? And then what's the process going forward to beginning to be part of a group?
Well, the first step would be to reach out to me, either by calling me on my phone, which is 204-573-7878 for folks in Brandon and Western Manitoba. And we even have folks from Eastern Saskatchewan who have attended the group as well. Or you can email me, ehmjay1949@gmail.com. And what I will do is I will schedule a time for us to have a chat, and we'll talk a little bit about your experience and how long it's been since your loss, so that I can determine whether or not the group is a good fit for you. And then if that's the case, I would invite you to the next available meeting.
Okay.
Which we meet once a month. We meet the last Wednesday of every month at the Elspeth Reed Family Resource Center in Brandon, Manitoba. Things are a little bit different now with COVID-19, and currently in Brandon, we're sitting at an orange level, whereas I know in Winnipeg, they're at red. So depending on that might change the format of our group a little bit, but as it stands, we're still meeting in person in smaller numbers.
Okay. So once someone goes through the intake process and is invited into the group, what is what's an average kind of group like? How would you describe the format, and what could people expect?
We like to incorporate a little bit of ritual into our group. It's something that helps group members feel safe, and it helps us establish a safe space. So the very first thing that we do when we welcome group members into the room and we start the group is we have a ritual where we light candles in memory of the ones that we've lost. And we have a creed that we say together as a group to honor the loved ones and the sacred space, so that we kind of create this healing environment for folks. And sometimes, depending, on what's happening in the community, we might provide some information around events on mental health or suicide awareness and prevention, and provide some psychoeducational information to the group, and provide resources, whether it's a video, we have a discussion on a video, or maybe a book or something that's happened in the media, we might provide some opportunity to discuss that. And then we would open the floor up to members who would feel comfortable sharing their story.
Okay.
And then following the group, yeah, sorry, Janet. And then following that, again, we close off the sacred space. We have someone in the group who will blow out the candles, and again, we'll cite a creed at the end. And then we gather for some fellowship and some refreshments, so that people can leave not feeling so raw.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like there's a lot of built-in internal supports from members, as well as some formal aspects of the program, but also very informal aspects where people can get support from one another.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that's I think the biggest draw for the group is the fellowship and support that grows between meeting folks who've had a similar loss, is the support from others. Sometimes folks can develop really strong friendships through this group.
Mm-hmm. What about for individuals that may not be ready, or it may not be a good fit for them to join a group? What kinds of other supports would you recommend people seek out to support them along this journey of grief and loss?
I've had a number of individuals who have sought out support through community mental health services in their region. And if, depending on, what our conversation entails, I could provide you with that information, depending on what region you are in. Community health services are a good place to start. Also, individual counseling and trauma support in your region, and I have a list of various other resources in the region of people who might be able to provide counseling services to help you through the initial stages of the trauma and shock of losing someone to suicide.
Mm-hmm. And I know there's also a Manitoba suicide prevention and support line that people can call 24/7 if they are in need of like immediate crisis counseling for themselves. A lot of people don't know that's also for people who've lost a loved one to suicide. So
yes, that's right.
Want to let people know about that resource. It's reasontolive.ca is the website for Manitoba. There's also the Canada Suicide Prevention Service across Canada for anyone else who might be watching this from other parts of the country. Are there any other resources that you would like to share with the audience that you think kind of stand out in your mind as being very helpful on this for suicide bereavement survivors in particular?
Well, there is the Reason to Live website. I think you mentioned that one already, which has got some really wonderful resources, and it's local to Manitoba. I believe it's out of Winnipeg, affiliated with Clinic. And there is the resource, which is the International Day, I can never say it right, the International Day for Survivors of Suicide Loss. There is a website attached to that I'm going to have to look it up.
Yeah, we can probably put it in at the end.
Yes, we can put that in the end. I don't know the website off the top of my head, but there's a wonderful collection of resources and videos and materials that is specific to a suicide loss. So if you want to click down in below, there'll be the website to that resource, which I think is really particular for suicide loss survivors.
Mm-hmm. Also, the Canadian Association for Suicide Prevention has some great resources. So I think anyone who might be looking for resources in their community could just Google Suicide Bereavement Support Group or Suicide Bereavement and be directed to a resource that might be fitting for you. And we know that November 23rd is International Day for suicide survivors. And we want to honor all of those who have lost a loved one to suicide, and to ensure that they know that they are supported and loved, and that there are places that they can reach out for help if they need it. I guess finally, we'll just talk a little bit about Spin Brandon, which is our local network of suicide prevention folks from all walks of life. If anyone is interested in getting involved in Spin, there's a place for you at that table. So spinbrandon.ca is the website for that, and they can also find more about the bereavement group on that site. So we'll direct some of our viewers to that as well. Elan, thank you so much for coming on today. I know that your co-facilitator, Amanda Navid, was not able to join us today, but I also wanted to recognize the important work that Amanda does to co-facilitate with you. And I think your group uses the model of a professional mental health worker such as yourself paired up with someone with lived experience. And I think that's worth, mentioning.
Yes, absolutely. And Amanda is a really amazing co-facilitator, and connects very well with the survivors who attend our group. And I'm sad that she can't be here with us today, but I really appreciate her support in the work that we do.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Janet.
Bye-bye.
Bye.